Today is about ENADE, how ENADE assess the quality of Brazilian higher education. So it was really fun to prepare this presentation because I had to go back to several studies we did on ENADE. It was really interesting to, and for me it was very like I was very happy to go there. I think Bobby saw some of these studies, but now I will give you like an overview of these studies and at least propose a new one. I think there is an interesting things to improve. So this slide that I said you already saw, I just want to again say that I'm very proud to be like visiting scholar at Lehman Center now. So that's that I add to my view here. But anyway, so let's go to direct to the topic. So we saw in Brazil a lot of policies to stimulate the enrollment of higher education, right? To increase students going to higher education. At the same time, there is this question about quality, right? So if we offer a lot of courses, and how good are we preparing these students? So at the same time, the government created these systems like assessment systems to kind of saying, oh, we are opening and we are like opening a lot of, or stimulating the opening of a lot of courses, but also assessing the quality of these courses. And it's not like just opening courses and everywhere, right? So, in 93, they started one test that is called Provão in Portuguese, like big test. It's the National Undergraduate Course Exam. I think you know, right? And usually assessed the bachelor degree, like the graduates in all courses, like, so at the end they were like 3 years or 6 years. It's one test for each bachelor. Can you imagine that? So in Brazil, so we create this test, ENADE is like that. So it's one test for each of the high school courses. In Brazil, as you know, with 6 or 5 years, you get your degree, like it's the entry level for your profession, for instance, law, psychology, education, everything. So after these 5 years, you have your title as your professional title, right? So, and then this test was used to assess the students where they are finishing their degree, and then, but the idea was to assess the quality of the course. So they had this test, and they calculate the average of students of a given course and express this average in 5 levels, A to E. A is the best course, like E is the worst. And then, so this test was assessing students and giving a grade to the course. Like my university, University of San Francisco, offers psychology. We have like it's like 60 or 80 students. So they do this test, and we get the average performance compared to all the other courses, students, and then assign a grade, like or this mark, like A to E. So this was 93 to 2003, and 2004 to 2000 until today. Actually, there is a new test that had some improvements. That's called ENADE, the National Exam of Assessment Student Performance. The difference is that in the past, it assessed also the freshman students, so the first year students and the last year students. Assessed both cohorts for each bachelor degree, right? And then calculates now 2 scores. One is similar to the Provão, that is a mark based on the average of the student's performance. They call this conceito de curso, right? Or the ENADE. And another index is the difference of performance index. Actually, you get the scores from the freshman students and predict what would be the expected scores on for the final, the graduate students. And then you see the residual. Actually, you are trying to correct for differences in the entrance level for the students. It's not only that, there is other controls, like schooling of the fathers. So there is other pieces on this equation to calculate this difference of performance index. but it is basically what matters here is the level of the freshman students. And also express the results in 5 to 1. Actually, it's similar to 5 levels, right? A to E, but it's 5 to 1. There is another difference that ENADE also is a test. There is 2 pieces. One is a general knowledge test, and another is a specific knowledge test. It's like 10 items for general knowledge and 30 items for specific tests. And within those items, there is like essay, like writing task, 1 or 2, 1 for, I think, or 2 for the general knowledge, and 3 usually for the specific knowledge test. So these are tests that are designed to assess the quality of these courses. So the object of assessment is not, so you get information from the students, but you are trying to assess the quality of the courses, right? So how good are these courses? So what is the measurement challenge here? So we are measuring students' knowledge. We call this a latent variable. And I am using some codes here to say that GFGCGKN. I will show you what it is. It's like crystallized knowledge. And so here is the questions that are represented. Actually, we observe this, right? We observe the students' achievement on those questions, and then we infer like their latent kind of ability they have. But what we want to assess is the influence of a course in this latent ability. What we want to know is exactly which part of this ability is influenced by the course. What I want to measure is this influence, right? Is if the course is improving their latent ability. So what I want to measure is this part, right? But there is also, so econometrically, there is several problems here, like what we, in psychometrics, we understand that the only causes of the achievement on these items are these latent constructs, but it's an unobservable variable, actually. And so this is a problem by itself, right, in terms of causal inference. And that's the reflexive model that we assume, right? We assume that the items are only caused by this latent knowledge. And in addition to that, we assume that there's only one dimension. That's another, because we compute only one score for each test. So it's only one dimension that is affecting those items. That's also questionable. But what we are actually trying to get information on is the influence of different courses influencing. I have this here. For instance, you have course B, course A, course B, and maybe course A improve the level of the student more than course A. And I want to estimate this piece here, and not actually via, of course, through the assessment of students, but I want to estimate these effects. So that's a really, really tough job, right? Because there is a assumption that these courses, course A and B, affect this latent construct. And I want a measure to show this effect. That's really, really tough. So here's another way of, sorry, it's in Portuguese, but I think most of you can get that. So you have the student going to the school, and then we have their final, when they like living in the university. So we have the social context, the institution, and then they have the course. The course is one group within the school. And we are trying to assess like the students, the beginning, their level, the students that are entering the course and the students that are leaving. There's another feature of this design. The ENADE measures the students that are coming in and students that are going out in the same time. And it's not the same student. I'm not doing a longitudinal study, right? I'm not following the studies and seeing their development along the time, but we are getting samples of those that are entering. And by the way, in this, today, they are using ENADE as the measure of the freshman students, not the same test as ENADE. But there's a lot of waves. They use the same test with the freshmen and then the graduates. So what evidence says about this, the validity of the, how can we assess the quality of the course fee students' performance? What data?
Sorry, Ricardo, I apologize for interrupting, but
No
that seems very important to me. that they're using different tests for the entry and the exit, and using ENADE, which is supposedly a test to evaluate readiness for university, and ENADE, which is presumes to measure, excuse me, what students have learned. And those are tests for different purposes and different designs and different populations.
It's true. No, that's a problem. I think there was some studies trying to show the use of the how using DNA impact the validity or impact the quality of or the composition of this index. And some studies have shown that's practically the same. We can think of, you can, with ENADE, the same test that's used to be, so you can have the distribution of the student, the scores of the student the same scale, right? But with ENADE, you have to predict, right, the distributions on the ENADE from the ENADE. There is a high correlation, it's usually 0.50, 0.60 between the two. So there is, but it's not, of course, it's not the same. So that's a question. But there is some studies that we did. One of our studies, we compared actually longitudinal and then also we compared the traditional way of calculating especially the IDD using longitudinal data with ENADE and with ENADE, and they are highly correlated anyway. So there is some evidence that you can do that, but of course is an issue, right? So what we did was...
Verheyen wants to ask a question also.
Okay.
Well, I just want to make a comment,
right?
Because I was a member of CONICE and even president of CONICE at the time that this decision was made to substitute the ENADE for the ENADE for beginning students. And to us, that made a lot of sense because the ENADE for beginning students was the same as the ENADE for finishing students. In other words, it had all those technical specific questions about the area of knowledge. How could you imagine that students entering would be able to have the knowledge about the specifics of their area of study that they would have at the end of their program of study? Whereas the ENADE is an indication of potential for learning, potential of doing well in learning situations, including within higher education. And so our studies were quite positive in indicating that it's ENADE that predicts, because the question is whether or not the previous study predicts the end study, or the previous test predicts the end test. And the ENADE predicted the end test much better than the beginning ENADE, because the beginning ENADE, as I said, was the same as the ending ENADE, and beginning students don't have anywhere near the knowledge that you'd expect for finishing students, but the potential for learning was indicated by the ENADE, and so it's normal that there would be a higher correlation. And so that's why we made the decision to substitute the ENADE beginning students with the ENADE. And I should say that to do so, it required a really complex legal situation, because the law specifically says that there has to be a beginning ENADE and a completing ENADE. And so we had to kind of play around the law in order to make this substitution. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Bob. I think nothing better than have the Yes, another thing I would add is that you need like a control variable, right? Because it's not actually a longitudinal measure of growth, right? Because we are not measuring the same students. We are measuring different samples. So you are not having the same, you don't need the same scale. I need a control measure, like it's a measure of controlling, trying to predict the ENADE based on cognitive previous achievement. And that I think it works. But of course, we can try to do, in a different way, we can try to measure growth. And then we need the same, that's I think is much more needed. You have the same test. But of course, there is this problem of level. And I will show you that the the questions that are more valid are those ones that measure the specific knowledge. We study that and show that. I will show you in a minute to study. And then specific knowledge are specific those questions that doesn't measure, that students don't know, but the beginning students don't know, and and the students know because they learn it along the course. So the best questions are those that are the topics that are being taught during the course and not before. And then, so of course, if we put a lot of these questions in a test, it doesn't make a lot of sense to assess students because it will not be good to assess the beginning students. But there is a lot of data that they use the same test. So we could do a lot of studies seeing this is very, there is also other advantages of using the same test. But anyway, what I'm showing you, okay.
I don't want to abuse this point, and Eric, I know, is upset that I'm dominating the conversation, but I'm just trying to understand then really what the ENADE is doing, right? Yeah. So we have the ENADE, which we agree is a predictor of students' capacity to succeed in post-secondary education, and we have the ENADE, and so basically, if I understand it correctly, we're using ENADE to predict an ENADE score, and then basically the residual on that regression is a measure of something, and what it's a measure of, I guess, is what's troubling me. Is it's something happened. The students are 4 years older. It's a different cohort, but that's what we have, right? It's basically the residual on a regression where it predicts the ENADE score.
Yeah, that's the IDD is one of the measures, but they still have the measure of the average achievement of the students on ENADE, like they use Provo. So we have these two scores.
Okay.
So the IDD is this residual. I would argue in the end that this is the best one to measure, more valid to get what the course does to the students. I will show you the data I have here. So,
okay.
But they have these two measures. So yes, that's the point. So the questions we did is like studying like psychometric validity, right? So what is this studies does? So they evaluate if the inference we are making, we made based on the test scores or the actions we take, right, using these scores are valid, or we have data to support those interpretations we are doing from those test scores, the actions we are taking based on that information. So validity is testing if we are making the evidence-based kind of interpretations of those tests, and we are using the information correctly, all the actions that follow, right, that information. And we have this statement for ENADE. ENADE is a measure of the quality of the undergraduate courses, right? That's the measure. Why is this important? Okay, so we try to do several studies in different ways to try to test this. It's actually the quality of the test. If we can do those interpretations from the test, or can do those policy actions based on the test, if we have evidence to do that. So that's our study. So what we are measuring in tests like ENADE, right? So this is like a summary of kind of intelligence theory of Cattell, like investment theory. We are measuring an adult cognitive ability, right, after they have gone to higher education. So we are measuring their competencies to be a good professional of his area and so forth. And within the intelligence construct, this is kind of, we can conceive this, especially, so there's two big, intelligence has several, so the model we have now, but for intelligence is this one, let me just show you this. So I have the reference here just for you to keep if you want to go and see. So this is the actual model we have, is Cattell-Horn-Carroll extended model of intelligence, and have several capabilities, right? But there is two big ones. One is our capacity to reason and solve problems, and it's like a kind of a process ability. It's ability to learn, ability to reason with new information. And there is intelligence that's based on knowledge. So that's what we know about things and how to do that, some works and so forth. So it is knowledge. It's breadth and deep of knowledge that we have. Actually, we have this like more process ability to invest this in learning experience, and then we crystallize knowledge. We gather knowledge, and we develop our memory, like our like crystallized ability, that is this breadth and deep of knowledge, right? Through this investment in learning experience. And of course, in these investments, we have society investing in your learning, you have family, your personal investment in all these experiences. So this is the big model of like your potential investment in education, for instance, in the school and out of the school, and then the intelligence as a knowledge, like the things that you learn after this investment. And of course, ENADE is trying to measure those aspects, like the crystallized knowledge we have. We can say competencies, and because this crystallized knowledge is not only knowledge about facts, it's knowledge about how to do things, it's procedural knowledge. So it's also knowledge how to reason and stuff, solve problems in mathematics, for instance. So it's all about knowledge, but different kinds of more declarative or procedural knowledges. And we call this crystallized intelligence. There is also reading and writing and other ability. There is math, and there is also specific knowledge. That's exactly what ENADE is trying to measure. The specific knowledge you develop after your high school education. I have some reference here for you. There is this very interesting model from Ackman that say that the domain-specific knowledge is a dark matter of adult intelligence. And then he uses this theory of Cattell to say these two kinds of abilities, like process abilities and knowledge abilities. And then together with your interests is all social emotional aspects, you develop your academic knowledge domains, right? And then what we are trying to do with ENADE is to measure those abilities. But anyway, let's go. I will go fast here to get to the studies. So one thing is very important to understand is that what is learning? So I brought here the model. It's a traditional model for Carroll, right? And he has a very interesting model that's learning. The effect, your degree of learning depends on the time the time you need to learn, right? Or better. So is the time you spent learning divided by the time you need to learn. So it's the time that you spent trying to invest in your learning experience divided by the time you need. And the time invested in learning, it depends also the opportunity, right? If you have the opportunity, and also your motivation, your more social emotional things, and your engagement, if you stay, if you want, if you dedicate energy to spend time learning. So these are two factors. And the time that you needed for you to learn depends on your previous capability. If you already learned something, you don't need time. You need zero time to learn, right? Because you already know. But, or your potential, your cognitive potential also, if you have so for you, it's very easy to learn math. Like you have a very visual spatial skills, it's very easy for you to understand those complex languages. So you need less time to learn because you are very fast on learning those things. So your capability that you bring to your learning situation decreases, high ability decreases, that's why it's 1 over, because your high ability decreases your time needed. And also the quality of education, right? The quality of material that's presented also decrease the time that you need to learn. And all these factors make this learning, right? What we are measuring exactly GC, or the crystallized knowledge, is exactly what you learn for a period of time. And this is a complex construct based on all these influences, right? And especially opportunity and quality of these opportunities, the ones that we are trying to measure in ENADE. We are not trying to measure exactly the potential of the students to learn, we are trying to measure exactly this quality of the instruction. That's this piece, okay? So here I have this 4, like ENADE is this measure of, I substituted not ENADE is measure of specific knowledge, right? And then the GC, and then we have all these 4 factors. And these 2 are the ones that I interested with ENADE. But there is also importance of these 2, like this cognitive and social emotional aspect. There are individual aspects, and the students bring to the, when they arrive to their like faculdade or their high school course, they bring all their previous knowledge, their motivation, everything bring there, right? And this will influence how they learn through the courses, but also they influence a lot of what will be the achievement in ENADE. But we are interested in all this. So the basic question, the first basic question we can ask is, how much of the ENADE variance is related to courses? Actually, I'm saying potentially to opportunity and quality of the courses, and versus the individual student, the variance of previous cognitive and social emotional skills of the students. How much of the variance we have in ENADE that is related to these other factors? I don't know if I was clear now, but we are assessing students, but we want to measure the causes that is related to the courses, this quality of instruction and opportunity that causes that knowledge. So another question, can we distinguish 5 levels of quality of courses based on that, on the variance that if it is there, can we distinguish 5 levels? And we are actually dealing here with construct irrelevant variance. So it's the systematic variance that exists in those tests, but they are irrelevant to my assessment because I want to know, I want to use that assessment to assess the quality of the course. And the quality of the course is, of course, this quality of instruction and offering, for instance, if the course offers the opportunity of specific knowledge for students and if this is high quality or not. So we can do this, for instance, here I have a simple example of like 3 courses, and imagine this is a scale, right, of the test, like ENADE. And we have 3 distributions. What we expect is that if we live in an ideal world, like students will not have any knowledge, and I have like 3 distributions, like blue and like light blue, light gray and red, represent like 3 courses, right? And they will not have the knowledge. There will be some variance within students. And then by the end, they will have a lot of knowledge and there will no difference between them. So this is the ideal situation. What happens is this one usually, right? There is a lot of difference between the students from different courses. The thing is the variance questions is that we have 2 types of variance. One within groups, right? We have like a variance in this variable within groups, and one between groups, right? That's the, for instance, all the students have low knowledge and not a lot of low variance between them, and they have lower knowledge, lower than this one and this one, and this would be the course that's best because these students have more knowledge. Okay, so I can compare relatively how much variance exists within students of one course, or how much variance exists between courses, that is between those means. It's kind of a variance decomposition. What we did in these studies, one study was to see exactly that, how much variance there is between and within courses. So we take ENADE, one data from ENADE, 58,000 students in business administration. I think we got this because it's the largest data set we had. I don't remember exactly which year was this. And we have like 1,121 courses. We are trying to assess these courses, right? This is a level 2. And we run a multi-level model. And the first level of this model, we are trying to explain the achievement based on the courses, right? The courses, like how much variance, the variance of this achievement on another is explained by courses. And this, I'm getting this between courses variance. And how much is within the students, within courses, right? And we did this model 0 is just courses as an effect. And then we did model 1 that we added some controls like further education, wage, and freshman's cognitive score on ENADE. We get the average of the freshman students on that course, right? That these were available for this analysis. So what we got, what was the results here? So here we have all these 1,000 courses. Each point here is an average. You can see exactly, but this is without the model 0, without control, and this is after control. Actually, we have 13% of the variance only that can be assigned to courses, and all the other variances within courses. And when we apply the controls, goes down to 4%. It's very low. So here's a kind of more concrete idea for the 5 levels. The question I asked is, can we distinguish 5 levels? So before control, we have like these averages of the courses, the students of the courses with conceito 1, like here's the 5 levels. I'm just calculating the average. This score is based on IRT. So we did IRT before running this analysis. So it's kind of -3 to +3. And we see -84, -63, and then 20. And here's, we have the standard error. So there's a lot of difference and correspond to these graphs. Although you see the errors around these means are huge. So we can, we can separate like very high, very low, but not much in the middle. But anyway, but this is the
Ricardo.
When we
I have a question.
Okay, Martin.
So is the unit of observation the course or the individual student?
It's a multi-level, so we have the individual student in level 1, and then in level 2 is the course. So it's the students.
So you can follow the individual student from the initial test to the end test?
No. Oh, here, sorry. I got it. The score for the beginning students is the average of the freshman students. It's not the same. So I'm using the same score for all the individual students. Actually, the beginning,
within the course
for the beginning is I average for all the students of that course. It's level 2. It's not individual. Okay, here is not individual. Here is for this control. It's just I'm controlling using a kind of a same score for the students on the beginning.
So you have the final score by individual student.
Yes.
Within a course.
Yes.
But
your
control is the average.
Exactly.
For that course.
Exactly.
On the earlier test.
Yes, exactly.
In the same year. In the same year.
In the same year, exactly. Exactly.
So not 3 years earlier.
Yeah, no. I did this kind of, I have another data set where I have this longitudinal with a name, but in this data set, I just used this average, exactly. So it's a mean score. It's not perfect. It's not this. So we are supposing, the assumption here is that the average student would be a representation of, best representation I have of the previous achievement of this final students I'm observing individual score. So I'm predicting.
You didn't control for the dropout in the course.
No, here not, no. Yeah, so I did control for the dropout, but this analysis I didn't control for that. Okay. Yeah, we can try to see how this affects, but the question here is how much variance we are left with. That's the main point, right? And you see here that there's a very small difference between all these 5 levels. After our control of this is not the ideal control because it's not longitudinal, it's not individual scores. But anyway, so what we have here is that the potential construct relevant variance is 4%. I'm saying that this average of the students is a proxy of the cognitive ability of these students I'm observing and has the strongest effect, right? But of course, it's a group scores, not individual scores I put here, right? And it's a confounder, right? What I'm trying to see is the relationship between courses and ENADE, but I have this previous ability as a confounder of this relationship. And one thing I want to point is that these calculations of interclass correlations, they take like compare the students' variance, right, is an individual score variance with the means of the courses, right? And I was thinking this is not exactly the same metric because how can you move a mean, right? You need to move a lot of students to move a mean up and down. And moving one student is one thing, moving a mean is another thing. So thinking about the effect, the mean is kind of a, and the variance of the mean is in traditional, if you just like get several samples, right? The standard deviation, the average of these means are the standard deviation of individuals divided by the square root of the n. So it's much smaller variance we have in the mean than in the students. So it's not exactly, from a psychometric perspective, it's not exactly comparable like this to I was thinking. Think about a very practical situation. A student go to a course and you have like a bunch of students, and then the course has a big effect in 5 students. Like he gets like 5 students and move them to above average. They start below average and above average. They affect 5 students only. The effect on the mean will be very small, right? The effect of those students. But this could be a very important effect. So the courses can change the student and change. And if he could change those students truly, right? So if it truly could change those 5 students, so this is an important potential for the course, that this effect of the course. The thing is, but this will not reflect on the variance of the means, because only 5 students moving up will not change a lot the mean. So, and then we will not see this. So that's one thing about this comparisons of the interclass correlation that I'm doing here. But anyway, so I propose in the end that maybe we should measure the changes in the distribution, not only changes in the mean. That's a proposal for improvement in ENADE. So maybe we can change the proportions of distributions in all the levels. That could be one suggestion. But anyway, so how is this important for this confounder? Okay,
please.
Erika, go ahead.
Sorry to
No, you can. So please interrupt.
I'm sorry. Is that you said something that I think it's really related with my work with Chico, because there we compare the distribution.
Okay.
We are analyzing Prova Brasil, and we use the Kuba-Kleiber measure.
Yes, I use, yes, I
and then we have this effect because we don't want to use on the mean to compare the distribution.
I will great, Erika. I will see that. Yes, I put in the final slide the Kuba-Kleiber could be a possibility, because yes, of course the mean is kind of it's a summary of the distribution, right? The mean, but it's not all. So you have a lot of things maybe going up below and above the mean, and this Kuba-Kleiber is kind of a synthesis of the change in the distribution.
Yes.
And standardized really, that index will be, I think, much better for ENADE, because I proposed in the past. So you do IRT construct maps and you make the scale more interpretable in terms of level, what's the competence of the students. Then you have the distributions of the freshman students, distribution of the end students, and then you compare the change in the distribution. That's I think is an improvement of IDD. I think it would be.
Yes, and this measure is really sensitive. You have done a lot of tests. If you have like high cauda pesada, I don't know. And we can track all the kinds of difference. Changes. It's really good. We can talk later if you want.
Really glad to know it. I will try to ask you if you can send them. Yes, I already saw some of your really amazing, and I will follow up on this. So what is important, this kind of confounder, the previous cognitive ability? Now I will present you, for instance, there is one, we always see that the federal and state universities are better, right? Have better scores on ENADE, on Provão, everywhere. And people, we see in the media say, oh, the federal and state universities are better than private ones because they have or see this data, they have better quality. So let's see one. So I have one data on psychology. In 2012, I recovered all the name scores from 2007. So I have this longitudinal data. So I recovered for this, I think was 6,000 students, I remember. So I recovered their scores on NA. So previous entering the course. So I have a correlation of 0.43 between NA and ENADE. And if I do a dummy code and then see the students from state and federal universities compared to private one, I have an effect of 0.37. When after controlling for NN, this goes to 0.5, it's almost non-significant. So is this difference can be interpreted as quality of the course no, I'm not saying bad things about, I don't want to say, no, they don't have high quality, of course. So the achievement's better, of course, but can we use that difference to say that this can be evidence of the quality of the course? No, this is the evidence of their different samples they have. So I have here so here is, you see ENADE, ENADE, right? So the greens are the state and federal students from state and federal universities, and red are private. So you see there is in the end, so you have this average, that's much higher average, but because they have a higher name, right? And here I have like a model, simple model predicting and controlling for NA, and then you have a like effect of 0.7. So this previous achievement is a confounder, of course, right? So they already enter with have different abilities. So and this means that they already have a lot of knowledge. They learn more. They have like maybe more researchers to learn, and also it can have other implications for other proxy for other variables like social economic status, and those differences are reflected on ENADE. And so we cannot use that piece of like this difference as indication of quality, right? So, but can we measure course quality with ENADE? And my argument that if so, yes, we can, but we need to control for previous cognitive ability. And that's what exactly IDD is doing. He's controlling for this, using the NA in sense, and also the control for this other variable that Martin said, but he's trying to do that, right? But still we are left with small amount of potential construct relevant variance, right? And then that's my proposal. It's like maybe we can measure change in the distribution, exactly as Erica was saying. And I think that would be a way. But also we need tests that target what courses are trying to change. We need go deeper on ENADE and see what is ENADE doing. Is ENADE measuring what is the course in trying to change or not? So that's another question on validity. What is the validity of items of ENADE, right? To measure the course effect. So I'm now go back in time, a lot of like, this is 2002 with the Provon. So we have a paper back then that so we are now back in time and not having any of this information of previous achievement, tests on the freshmen. We are leaving Provon now in Brazil, just getting the average of the students and assessing the quality of the courses. And we started, a friend of mine called me and he had an idea to apply Provon in the freshman students, exactly as ENADE did. So we did that, and we did a study applying the 4 courses of psychology. We apply Provon in the freshman students and got the data from the ENADE, from the Provon of their like graduates, right? And then we test the validity to see. Our question is, how is the items discriminating also the freshman students? Because if that's true, that's not very valid, because this test needs to discriminate only, differentiate actually only the end of the course students. And we have this data, so we did an ANOVA, simple ANOVA, comparing the level of the course, and then Caloros here is the freshman, and then gray is the graduates, right? So you see the same, so A is better than B, than C, than E, but you see the same kind of scores from so they get better students and they increase their development. All the courses are, so you see all the students are improving, but what the higher scores for the A courses, because they already have like the freshman students are also higher. So we show that, and then we did, I think the most interesting part of this paper is this analysis. We have this reasoning that if an item is good, discriminating what the course is doing, he will not differentiate at all the students, the freshman students, but will differentiate the graduates. So we set up like a logistic regression predicting the correct answer in each item, and using three main effects. One is the course, the level of the courses, right? If the student is from a course with low achievement and high achievement, momento is like if it's a beginner or end of the course student, and then this interaction effect that is trying to picking up this pattern of like not discriminating the freshman students, but discriminating the graduates. And we did this for each of these questions. So we have here all the questions of Provon, and here's the percentage of correct responses from freshmen and graduates, and then all the effects. And we saw this effect in some of the questions. And then what we did is we selected those questions and run the analysis again, and then we get the results we wanted, like, of course, right? So no differentiation between the freshman students and a lot of differentiation between the end of year. And if we look to those questions are those ones very specific ones, like neuroscience, about Rorschach testing, psychology. They are very specific knowledge questions. And those questions are the most valid to get this differentiation of the graduates and not the beginning students. So we are not measuring very well the freshman students, but we are measuring better and then we could see this. So this is one study that we was trying to understand what would be good questions for ENADE. So conclusion so far now that we have. So importance of previous cognitive ability and as a confounder, and now content validated and construct representation of ENADE. So general crystallized ability is strongly linked to previous knowledge or history of cognitive development. But specific ability is potentially more valid for ENADE. And by the way, this paper has a great importance for, I think, shaping the use of freshmen in ENADE. Actually, this was done before ENADE, and because I think this paper was commented on Veja, and Claudio Moricastro commented, and has a lot of influence on these guys that are entering the ENAP and then try to develop ENADE. I think this was a kind of a previous influence on ENADE. And then, so we have here, so then now we are back to the future again. 2004, ENADE is being developed. I was there together with these guys because we had this study, and then I was there trying to help the development of ENADE. I think this was previous, Reinaldo was not there yet, I think, Reinaldo, that developed the IDG, but and I just replicated the same study now with ENADE data, right? I will just show, I think I'm going very like late, but I will just show. So we have this first edition of ENADE, 106,000 students. I think was the biological area because ENADE measure, each cycle measure different students. And I just will show you, so this is the number table, but here, so you see. So you see here, now I have two tests, the general knowledge and then the specific knowledge. I don't remember exactly why we merged 1 and 2 students. I don't think we had a lot of courses with 1 and 2 levels, so I merged them. And you see the same pattern. You see all the students. So we have differentiate main effect of the moment, like graduates and freshmen, and also a big effect of level of the course, right? The 5 courses that receive mark 3, 4, 3. And so there is no, and then there is a lot of difference between the beginner. So the difference that we observe in the end already there in the beginning, that's then, and everybody goes up. That's interesting. And interestingly enough, we don't see this difference in the general knowledge. We don't know if the test is picking up what is being influenced in these abilities, or because it's very small, no reliability to get this difference, but we only see this big difference. And by the way, this could be used as a control exactly as ENADE is used. So we can use the general knowledge as a control tool for these distributions. But anyway,
Ricardo?
in this time we did this kind of regression. Okay.
Hello?
Anna? Yes, Anna.
Can I make a question?
Yes.
So I struggle a little bit to understand how ENADE can measure quality of course, because the incentives aren't really there for the students to take the exam seriously, right? And then I'm just wondering how you would take that into account.
Yes.
So like the way from all of what you said so far, I would understand that like these estimates would be possibly a lower bound of differences, because some students might have might feel more intrinsically motivated to take this exam seriously than others. I personally had to take ENADE, and I remember my entire cohort not taking it seriously at all, especially on the last year. Like most of my cohort, I remember, just like sat down, signed their name, and then left as soon as the bell rang. So that's that. I know that's like strong, small sample bias, but it's still something that was very strong to me as an impression. So I just wonder, like, how would that be?
No, yes, no, that's definitely a confounder, right? So if you did or not, so that's completely a confounder, and I don't know if Bob has some information, but I don't know. For some time you need to do ENADE to get your diploma, right? So that's why they try to
so
students to do it, but they can just put their names but anyway, so in principle, this happens more in the federal and state institutions, and the private ones are always, so the institutions trying to motivate students to do it, and then because it's important for their like a view of the university. So and since 90%, 80% of the students are coming from private universities, so that will not be influenced for those, or maybe if they are not happy with their university, maybe they do purposefully not doing well on the test. So it's definitely a confounder. We need to do something about. I don't know if it's being done, but in general, you see there is a lot of consistency going on here, and we can see interesting differences. So the question is, how much is this a problem, right? How big is this problem is in this data? I think it depends a lot on the time of the ENADE, the type of cycle, but definitely it's a confounder. But I don't have a specific answer or control that's being done to trying to. Of course, some institutions, they all how they say, they boicotaron, that we say in Portuguese, right? I don't say in English. So they didn't do the test. Like a lot of, like USP, for some time they didn't do. So we just, when analyzing this data, just remove those guys, because there's no meaning to point to when we know they didn't do the test. So there's no information to be analyzed there, right? Yeah. Martin, I don't know if you. So.
Anna, let me intervene very briefly. Ricardo, why don't you finish, then we can do our discussion.
Yeah, so yes, I have a lot. I will try to, so just show this, and then, so this is one graph I did about correlation between, so all those points are courses, right? We have 1,428 courses, and this is the average of each point is based on the average of the freshman students and then the average of the graduates. And you see, and all the courses here. So you see everybody is above the diagonal line here because they're improving, but there is a lot of variance. And then there is this, this is what I'm seeing, there's a lot of variation, right? For the same level of the beginning, the entrance level, there's a lot of variation. And then we propose this as a kind of a measure of residual, right? Okay, here. A residual of this prediction. And this is a kind of a prior to IDD, I think. So and this is slides from a presentation I did in the ENADE by that time, but this is the idea that it's a kind of a measure controlled by the beginning score. But anyway, so I had, and here's another graph of IDD now with data from this sample that I analyzed, showing some, there is the relationship between the traditional, here's the level of the score of ENADE, 1 to 5, just the average of the students, and here is the IDD. So you see there is a correlation 0.40, I think, between the two, but there is a lot of variation left, not related to the level of the achievement. That is, I think, is most useful to assess the quality of, or is closest to the quality than this score that's largely biased by previous level, right? And you can see this graph. But anyway, so I had another analysis that was a diff that's very interesting, that's related to discontinued regression, but maybe we can discuss this later in a more like it's an idea for a paper. I don't know, because for now I think we don't have a lot of time for discussion, so I will try to I will finish here, and then we can discuss later about this other analysis that's trying to is a more technical of diff analysis, and I have the papers if you want. Okay, so I think maybe it's would be a good.
Okay, questions.
Here and
do people have questions?